So, as a lot of you know, my name's Alana, so I'm going to be your host for this evening. And alongside me, I have two very special guests who are a wealth of knowledge and will soon be sharing their insights on medicinal mushrooms and how they can enhance our well being. And just a little bit about myself. I'm currently living on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. I'm originally from Ontario, so I'm kind of bopping around Canada. And my journey in life's just always been rooted in health and wellness. By trade, I'm a hearing aid practitioner. I have a little background in speech therapy. And as a lot of you know, just from online and just knowing me, I have such a wild heart for adventure. I'm just always outside doing something, and, traveling just really fuels my passion for exploring while learning, helping, and connecting with others about wellness really drives me. So I really enjoy, teaching and sharing with others what I've learned along the way. So I'm really excited to just dive in today and talk to you guys about how fascinating medicinal mushrooms are and how they can truly make a difference in our lives. So I'm going to pass the first guest over to Diane. So Diane, do you mind just introducing yourself, and then we'll introduce Dr. Bob?
Absolutely. Welcome everyone tonight. Some of you have already known, me from the past. You've heard my talks, my conversations on this amazing product. And the truth is that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for our superstar, amazing presenter tonight. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm an orthomolecular nutritionist here in Canada. Love the health and wellness space. I have done many, many things in the past 25 years of being in this space, including, doing a lot of work with not only health and wellness of the physical body, but energetic, right? And you're going to learn that medicinal mushrooms are also very much vibrational, very much passionate about the space where Dr. Joe Dispenza works from. If you guys don't know who he is, definitely wealth of knowledge on quantum physics, the energy of food, the energy of our bodies, very, very powerful. And again, wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't for our rock star presenter tonight, who's so busy. And it's just an honor and a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Bobrakowski. I'll turn it over to Alana to introduce you. And thank you for always being so wonderfully available and a fountain of knowledge. So like Elena said, if you don't have a pen and paper tonight, I promise you, you're going to want one. And I strongly recommend you get that because you're going to be hearing a lot tonight.
Okay, thanks so much, Diane. I don't even know where to start with Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob is it is just such an honor to know you and to have you here tonight. And I hope you guys can feel that once we keep going here. So Dr. Bob Rakowski is a functional medicine practitioner. He's a kinesiologist, a chiropractor, nutritionist. He's got hours in nursing. He's a world-renowned speaker all around the world, I guess, and a Rishi expert as well. And he is just someone who just has the kindest heart. He's so passionate about teaching and educating other people and just trying to make people live a healthier, happier, and successful life. And Dr. Bob, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm really grateful to have you here.
Well, Alana, I almost can't pronounce your name without going with the Alana. And maybe people will hear a little bit more about that in a bit. But Alana shared some of these medicinal mushrooms with a friend, and you never know what can happen. It turns out this woman and her husband were trying for a long time to have a baby and finally just gave up. But guess what? Medicinal mushrooms are so good for the body, so good for fertility, so good for hormone balance. We're going to cover some of that this wonderful person ended up having an absolutely beautiful baby. And by the way, we have a lot of medicinal mushroom babies, miracle babies, and that's so much fun. And for whatever reason, my computer is just deciding that it's going to spin and spin and spin, and I don't know why, but we'll figure out a way around that. But with that said, when we start looking at medicinal mushrooms, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they are now becoming an absolute global phenomena. Things like reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane, chaga, turkey tail mushroom. These are things that are essentially taking off all over the world, but it's really nothing new. This has been going on for, well over 5,000 years. So we start out here with this picture of the original emperors of China. And my computer is really not behaving. I'm not appreciating this at the moment. And the reason I show those heads is they're over 100 meters tall, over 300 feet tall, and they're there in the park holding Ganoderma in the following slide. So 5,000 years ago, the medicinal mushroom reishi, the king of herbs, was known and to be so valuable that it was reserved exclusively for the royal family. So it turns out if you were not in the royal family and you were caught with these mushrooms, the first offense, they would actually cut your arm off. The second offense, they would cut your head off. And so you might wonder, well, would anybody ever commit the crime a second time? And apparently they would. I'm going to actually go with plan B for getting the slides on there because I am a very visual person. So give me just a moment to do that. I always have a plan B. So one of the first things I was showing was some of the boom of medicinal mushrooms. Let's share a new screen now. All right, plan B, here we go. All right, so Newsweek had a cover story. They're calling it a medical marvel. And what are they holding there? They're holding mushrooms. And if you could read the fine print, they're actually talking about those being some of the most powerful ways to get rid of clinical depression. One of the things that I had the joy of doing in 2009 was teach a global brain series with a neurologist from Cornell. And, you know, the data was clear. There had been no major advances in the treatment of clinical depression for over 50 years at that point. And now it's an oldie but a goodie. They're finding medicinal mushrooms, and some of them are even under a unique category called psychedelic mushrooms, but they're getting far better benefit, lasting remission, things getting better, absolutely amazingly. And then there was a nice article in Women's Fitness talking about mushroom coffee, interestingly enough. That's a pretty interesting way to get your mushrooms for minimizing menopausal symptoms and improving hormone balance. And we're going to share some of that. So there's the emperors from China. There they are in the park holding Ganoderma. And it was actually considered the miraculous king of herbs. Because there are so many health benefits. There are literally over 3,500 published medical studies. So this individual's name is Paul Stamets. His nickname is Mushroom Man. He's the world authority. And he gave a TED Talk entitled 6 Ways That Mushrooms Will Save the World. And very, very simply, it's powerful for the immune system. It's powerful for balancing the entire body. It's wonderful to detoxify not just the body, but the entire environment. And one of the stories that Paul Stamets tells is there was an oil spill that was very disruptive to all the wildlife. They were trying to figure out how they would clean it up, and they couldn't come up with a solution. And Paul Stamets said, well, why don't you just plant mushrooms? Now, interestingly enough, an oil spill, an oil is a hydrocarbon. It has hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. A carbohydrate, which is a sugar, is the same molecules rearranged. And by the way, when we eat food, we take the molecules, we break them down, we rearrange them for what we need. And what these mushrooms did is they literally ate the oil, the hydrocarbon, and converted it into an edible carbohydrate. Now, literally, when they studied the mushrooms, they weren't toxic at all. Now, because they fed them on oil, they burned them. They didn't want to feed people that. But how wonderful that our ecosystem has something that can clean up the environment in such an amazing way. And this was a very, very fascinating article that I read years ago. After 9/11, our Department of Defense was very, very concerned about some type of bioterrorism attack, and especially with anthrax. So they asked Paul Stamets, hey, do you think these mushrooms could do anything for anthrax? And sure enough, he found that they could. Now, interesting enough, we'll talk about reishi mushroom, but if you really want an education, go to pubmed.gov, type in reishi, also known as Ganoderma, and you might follow that up, Ganoderma and HIV. It even blocks replication of the HIV virus. Ganoderma and HPV, it can actually eradicate HPV. Lesser viruses, Ganoderma and chickenpox, it can get rid of that. Chickenpox, by the way, if a little child gets it, we call it chickenpox, but if an adult gets it and they get an inflamed nerve root, they call that shingles, herpes zoster. And believe it or not, 100% cure rate with reishi mushrooms for shingles within 10 days. And by the way, 0% of those people had any recurrence. Now, medically, the drugs are nowhere near as good. They get about an 80% remission rate, but about every year there's a 20% recurrence. So the mushrooms are a lot more powerful there. And Paul has his own interesting story about how when he was a child, he had a very severe stutter. And he was worried about asking questions in class. He certainly, was worried about maybe asking anybody out on a date. And one day he took some medicinal mushrooms, and just like that, his stutter was gone. And so if you look at the bottom of that, it says Joe Rogan with Paul Stamets talking about his stutter. So you can watch that on YouTube, and it's absolutely fascinating. But then fast forward, not only do we have mushroom infused coffee, we have mushroom infused cocoa. Sachin Patel, who's a phenomenal functional medicine practitioner, had one of his practitioners where the family had struggled with their son having an absolutely severe stutter. They spent many, many thousands of dollars, neurologists, different types of tests. Within 4 days, the stutter completely resolved. And I couldn't think of a better way to get rid of it for a kid than a delicious, hot, healthy cocoa. Now, there's almost no limit to how much we can talk about this, but this was a very nice slide that talked about some of the benefits of these medicinal mushrooms. Number one, boosting the immune system. So we showed that bioterrorism little snippet with Paul Stamets. If it can block anthrax, HIV, HPV, H1N1, it was even very effective for COVID. And by the way, they knew that by March of 2020. If people took these mushrooms along with traditional medicine, they dropped the death rate of the real harsh COVID by over 27x. So absolutely amazing what Nature's Pharmacy has. Weight loss, we've had some people just switching to mushroom coffee from maybe a Starbucks latte lose 50 or 60 pounds over the course of a few years with that one change. Great for blood pressure. When you start looking, this one says stimulates absorption of iron. Well, that's pretty significant because iron is the top mineral deficiency in the world. But let's take that a step further. There's a lot of people that don't get good quality iron in their diet. And we are all, men and women alike, being intoxicated by estrogens in the environment, estrogens in plastics, estrogens in pesticides, estrogens injected into animals. And if you look around, you're going to see that young girls are developing much, much, much more rapidly. And you'll also see that men are having very low sperm count, sexual dysfunction. It's really a crime against humanity. So there's two things. One, it enhances all of digestion, but two, it helps the body to clear these toxic estrogens. And that can be very powerful for fertility. And Alana, that might just answer why your wonderful friend now has a beautiful baby. It strengthens bone and teeth. It helps to lower cholesterol, but not just that, it lowers the bad cholesterol and actually raises the good. They talk about reducing the risk of breast and prostate cancer. Later on, I'll show you a slide of 15 plus cancers that these medicinal mushrooms are proven with both direct action against the cancer itself and action to enhance the immune system. And by the way, if you dig into the medical literature, you'll find out that some of these medicinal mushrooms, reishi specifically, enhances the killing effect of chemotherapy while protecting normal cells, also enhances the killing effect of radiation while protecting normal cells. I'm hoping that sometime in the future, this will be standard of care. Very, very good for diabetics. It's actually anti-diabetic by 6 different mechanisms, and this says it protects them against infections. And then as far as osteoporosis and joint pain, it's good to control inflammation. It's good for energy. It's good for hormones. When you have more energy and less pain, you exercise more. But it's also anti-inflammatory by over 15 proven mechanisms. So much we can talk about. This was an article in Women's Fitness, and they talked about the top medicinal mushrooms. And I'm going to highlight the top 3, cordyceps, reishi, and lion's mane, because those make up over 95% of the medicinal mushroom market. And full disclosure, we actually have invested in a company that puts that in gourmet, delicious coffee and tea. And in fact, it was voted the best organic coffee in the world in 2022. When you look at cordyceps, this came into the limelight with the Chinese Olympians in the 80s and 90s. They started really winning the endurance sports. And they said, okay, what's going on here? And they realized they were taking cordyceps. And it was phenomenal for athletic performance, energy, anti-inflammatory process, and recovery. Phenomenal for the lungs. I have a professional hockey trainer in Sweden. His name is Andreas Ogren. And during allergy season, he would carry an inhaler with him. He'd go out for a jog, and if he ever had, any issues with his lungs, he'd use his inhaler. After he started drinking our red tea that has reishi and cordyceps, he was doing that for about 10 days. He went out for his first run and he realized he didn't take his inhaler out and he didn't even think about it. His lungs were absolutely perfect. When we look at reishi, also known as Ganoderma, that's the king of herbs, really, really good for stress, anxiety, depression, immunity. That's the one that has over 3,500 studies. And then lion's mane, my memory aid, very, very simple, great for your brain. And I'll tell an interesting story. I have a lot of patients that are very, very health conscious. And I treat an entire family. The 11-year-old boy, had extreme concentration problems in school. So he was taking Adderall. That's the drug of choice here. Well, the insurance company said, you know what, we're not paying for that anymore. We'll give you a generic. Well, this little boy didn't do well with that at all. And he told mom, I don't want to do that. That makes me feel horrible. But guess what? Then the teacher was saying, hey, something's not right here. He's not focusing. He's not concentrating. Well, mom was drinking a coffee that had the reishi, the cordyceps, and the lion's mane, and she noticed that her brain got instantly better. And she thought, well, let me make him one before school. And to make it for a kid, she put in some honey and some, healthy milk, maybe some cream, made it taste good for him. He had it. And he came home that day. He says, Mom, I can't believe it. That's the best day I think I've ever had at school. He says, can I do that again? And that has actually replaced, in that case, his Adderall. So very, very interesting claim. By the way, we live in a world that we can't make a health claim on anything that's not a drug. So I'm not making a health claim. I'm giving a testimonial. But if you go to pubmed.gov, there it is right there, you're going to see over 3,500 studies on Ganoderma going back over 90 years. And then you look at this graph here where they show the publications. Over the last couple of decades, every single year, the numbers have gone up exponentially because these medicinal mushrooms are now a $30 billion a year market, approaching $50 billion a year. So when you start looking at this list, and I might pause and see if anybody has any questions about any of these issues or any other: allergies, asthma, overall health benefits, breast cancer, brain health, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, depression, Parkinson's, cancer, radiation benefits, anti-seizure, good at lowering stress, improving sleep, great for the liver cancer, pregnancy, diabetes, by the way, perfectly safe. All the medicinal mushrooms that we promote, perfectly safe, pregnancy, nursing, anybody in the high risk category, and it goes on and on. So I might just pause that for a moment before I continue with some of the other things and see, does anybody have a question about any of that or any others that gets your attention? You can type in the chat, you can raise a hand, you can unmute. So Camila typed something in, I can see that. So let me see what Camila asked. And Camila, by the way, has an absolutely beautiful testimony. In fact, I'm even going to tell it. Camila, I don't know if you're up for turning your camera on, but this is one of my favorite stories of all time, and it's worth sharing. Oh, there she is, in the beautiful dark of Mexico. But you look at Camila, and it was a couple of years ago. She was referred to me by another friend of mine in Sweden. I've been to Sweden many times since the 90s. Beautiful country, beautiful people. So he says, Bob, I have a friend you want to talk to, that I want you to talk to. So I talked to Camila, and I said, all right, Camila, how can I help you? And the words out of her mouth were very desperate. She said, I'm dying. And I looked at her, I thought, okay, you don't look like you're dying, I mean, she's beautiful. And, she says, look, I got my hair done, I got makeup on, but I'm dying. I said, what? She said, let me share my labs. So her liver enzymes had been elevating for a long time. Her kidneys were failing. Those numbers were going down. She was extremely inflamed and anemic. And I thought, holy cow, what is going on with you? And she said, you know what? 10 years ago, I weighed 450 pounds. I had a gastric bypass. They took my stomach, which was about the size of a soccer ball, European football, and cut it down to a tennis ball or smaller. And so what they do is they create malnutrition by creating malabsorption. And sure, people lose weight. Why? Because they can't get any nutrients. And 5 years after that procedure, 87% of the people have full-blown medically diagnosable malnutrition, which makes it very severe. So I thought, oh my gosh, how can I help her? She doesn't even have an functional digestive tract, and she's halfway around the world. So we have some capsules that have reishi spores in it, the most powerful part of the mushroom. By the way, I also gave her melatonin and theanine. And 4 days into that, and Camila, I will get to your question. She says, we need to talk. So I said, okay, what's going on? And so her next words, are you trying to kill me? I said, of course not. What's going on? She says, look, I'm throwing up. I'm sweating. I'm running to the restroom 10 times a day. I barely have energy. What's going on? I said, Camila, believe it or not, our program's working. You probably have not been able to detox anything for 10 years. It's nutrient dependent, energy dependent, protein dependent. So, stick it out. How long am I going to have to go through this? I don't know. But guess what? 11 days, she had her first night of sleep in decades. At 14 days, she got her life back. And she said, oh my gosh, we need to share this with the world. And big shout out to you. So she made it much easier for everybody with the capsules, and she has her stress reset and stress release drops. Took a year and a half to make that. Very, very wonderful project. But here's a question. You want to know how it's possible that it can fix low iron? Well, first and foremost, it has iron in it. Not a ton, but some. Secondly, it's phenomenal for digestion. We'll get to the stomach later, but it enhances hydrochloric acid. It can actually kill a bug in the gut called H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, which is associated with ulcers and a lot of gastric distress. It's good for leaky gut. It's good for inflammatory bowel. It's good for ulcerative colitis. It's good for Crohn's. Those are all in the peer-reviewed medical literature. So we're going to enhance the digestive system. But the other part is by pulling out the xenoestrogens, the foreign estrogens, the metalloestrogens, the synthetic estrogens, and helping bodies process their own, then females who are still in childbearing years will not have excessive menstrual bleeding. And so when they're losing less iron, they keep more in their body. And that is how the body is able to reestablish iron stores. So in this part of the world, it's usually not that most people are iron deficient unless they're vegan. Then they have to go special route to get enough iron. But it takes care of the hormonal imbalance that is associated with the technical term menorrhagia or heavy menstrual cycles. So I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I'll continue. And by the way, if you have them, please, please, please feel free to ask. So now when we start looking at brain health, over 284 studies on mushroom for depression, about half of those are related to psilocybin, which was considered a psychedelic mushroom. And they do something called microdosing. So it's non-toxic. It still should be done with medical professionals, but they're having better results with microdosing of these natural molecules than any pharmaceutical drug tested. So very, very, very powerful there. And then we start looking at our favorite medicinal mushrooms that we, by the way, have coffee and tea and cocoa for brain health. It's great for serotonin, which is happiness, GABA, which is calmness, and even to the point of being anti-seizure, acetylcholine, which is memory, and then dopamine, which, by the way, 3 different parts of the brain, 3 functions. Some people think of dopamine with Parkinson's. There's something called the substantia nigra, and it's fine motor control. And I've seen Parkinson's patients literally, and I've got videos on my YouTube channel. They're shaking, shaking, shaking. We put them on the right protocol, and within weeks, they have steady hands. In fact, I'll share, I was in Canada. It was actually in Ottawa or near Ottawa. And the first time I gave a health lecture about reishi, there was a gentleman there that was drinking his coffee through a metal straw. And he'd have the straw on the table and he'd bring his face to the straw. And I looked at him, I said, I hadn't seen anybody drink coffee through a straw. And he picked up his hand and it was going like this. He had such bad Parkinson's. So imagine you're going to spill hot coffee on you. That wouldn't be a good thing. Well, 2 months later, went back for a follow-up talk. I watched him pick up his cup, have a delicious sip. He says, you know what? This saved my life. Thank you. Now, again, will that do that for everybody? No, but guess what? You can go to pubmed.gov and you'll see it's proven to be effective for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And here's what I'll tell you. Whenever there's neurodegeneration or any condition like that, there are 3 distinct zones of cells. There are cells that are dead. We can't do anything about that. There's cells that are fine. We don't need to do anything about those. But in between are cells that are functional but not functioning. So what did we do? We took cells in his brain that weren't working anymore and made them work better. And that's proven to happen in the medical literature, and with no downside, no downside to taking it. So the shroom boom approaching $50 billion. Interestingly enough, 2019 trends, they're talking about beverages made with reishi mushrooms, and now mushroom coffee is really, really powerful. So there's an app called Tone Op, and it's talking about mushroom coffee for women's health. And what does it specifically say? It's going to boost energy, balance hormones affected by menopause, and even reduce hot flashes. By the way, it says it's also good for natural sleep cycles, insomnia, and hormonal associated fat gain. Additionally, it's really good at balancing estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol. And some of the things that people see with this are improved stamina of all sorts, endurance, and vitality. Now, interestingly enough, there's a lot of people that can't drink coffee, especially people that have gut issues. So nearly 80% of people that have acid reflux cannot drink coffee. Interestingly enough, we've built a huge business of people that previously couldn't handle regular coffee, but really liked it, by giving them our coffee infused with sometimes Ganoderma, also known as reishi, sometimes cordyceps, lion's mane, sometimes all three. But reishi is considered the most alkaline food in the world. And then we have a patented process by which we make the coffee even more alkaline before putting the reishi in. Why? Because it makes it more gut friendly and makes the nutrients more bioavailable. And then, as a final aside on slides, there are a lot of reasons why people should avoid coffee, especially if they have a problem with it, whether it's blood pressure, insomnia, caffeine headaches, acid reflux, anxiety, issues with pregnancy. Sometimes people put a lot of sugar in it. Sometimes they have gut issues. But interestingly enough, when we add our medicinal mushrooms to our coffee, we have the peer-reviewed medical studies there. Literally every one of those issues goes away. I've had people that, they would put up sometimes with horrible side effects because they really enjoyed their coffee. Well, guess what? Not only did we give them the benefit of what they got from the coffee, but we made all the side effects go away. And you just never know how well that's going to work. When you start looking at Ganoderma, most of it, because it's now a multi-billion-dollar a year market, it's expensive to cultivate it in an organic, natural environment. Ours is USDA certified organic, EcoCert, kosher, halal, proven clear of herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, mycotoxins. These that are grown in the plastic bag, well, they can call them organic because they didn't use herbicides, insecticides, fungicides. But in medicine, in the practice of healthcare, we use a physical exam to get a lot of our data. And here's what I always tell people. What you see on the outside, if you know how to look at it, reflects on what's happening on the inside. So I would ask you, which of these mushrooms do you think looks healthier? And you know what? Not only do we know that this looks healthier, but this is going to produce spores. That's how the mushroom replicates. We have a patented process on how to get the nutrients, but these don't even make the spores. So our business partners are one of the few that do have spores available, and we have 99.9% nutrient bioavailability. So I'm going to step away from the slides and see, does anybody have any questions? Or Diane, you're always pretty magic with comments. Any thoughts to share?
I think the power medicinal mushrooms right now is just so on the rise, but what's really key is the taste. I know that people don't want mushroom soup. They actually want real tasting, amazing coffee. So I think this was one of the big winners in my practice when I first started sharing. But what I love about it is the ease of travel. The way people travel nowadays, it's just part of human life, but nobody wants to be sick. Nobody wants to be run down while they're traveling. Nobody wants to have no energy. And I know what that's like. I know what it's like to, jump on a plane, be in another country, and then all of a sudden you're not feeling well and your vacation's ruined. And definitely this product has helped me with my little one. He doesn't drink coffee, but they also sell capsules. And I never, ever, ever travel without my spores. It's absolutely a 911 for anything to do with, you need something now. You need something yesterday to get you out of hot water. So this is the area that I thought was really powerful. And then watching how Alana shares it so beautifully, in the woods, in her camper, up north, it's just adding hot water. But the power of the way it will fuel your body for you to make sure that you have the best vacation of your life can really, really be amazing for that. And you know, if you've tried the product, type in chat what you love to drink. I love hearing from other people that have experienced this. And maybe Elena, anything you want to share while we're deep in the science, but I think what is the everyday application and how can people really thrive with this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always think about, I love listening to other people's stories, and I'm guilty for not sharing mine. And I think it's just because it's personal, right? And I listen to, Dr. Bob and how reishi can help with so many things. And, someone introduced the coffee to me like 4 years ago. And I was so skeptical. I'm like, what is this mushroom coffee? Like, this isn't going to do anything. And so I liked it. I was like that typical Starbucks girl, like $7 a cup, whatever it is. But on a personal side of things, like I did have HPV. And so I started drinking the coffee, and 2 weeks I had HPV happened. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I was doing okay. Like, I was, every now and then. And so I messaged Dr. Bob. I'm like, hey, like, just wondering, because this is the only thing that's changed, because, I've had doctors prescribe me like these massive pills to take, and I never really wanted to take them because they would mess up my stomach. And Dr. Rob, maybe you can speak to it more, but you were explaining something how the mushroom kind of goes to where it's needed in the body to do a detox. And it's been over 4 years now. And when Dr. Bob said like those types of viruses can be eradicated, I'm a testament to that, because it's been eradicated. Like, I have no issues, and like that was my like holy, like this is like actually like real, like this is happening, this is so good. So that was my personal story. And then months later I decided to get off birth control that I was on for 11 years. And I also used the reishi supplements in addition to a couple other things to help get off of those, because I haven't actually had hormones for so long. So that was another thing. But Dr. Bob, if you can speak towards like the detox part, because that is a real thing, that'd be helpful too.
Yeah, and what I've told people for years, and sorry if I get into doctor speak occasionally, but the symptoms of chronic poisoning, these are published: fatigue, sleep disturbance, intestinal distress, allergy symptoms, headaches, confusion, and anxiety. And when I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, if I got rid of these symptoms, I might have to do something else for a living, because that's nearly everybody walking in my door. So for well over 30 years, I've been putting people on really intense detox programs. And you know what? If you haven't done one, sometimes your body says, oh, I've got what I need. I'm going to dump all these toxins. That's what happened, Camila. That's what I was telling the story when she's throwing up and running to the restroom. Alana, whatever you had going on, I had a woman come in and she had very severe rheumatoid arthritis, very young lady, beautiful lady. She said, look, I don't want to take these medications long term. I know they can raise my cancer risk, but I don't want to be in pain. Is there a strategy? And this is a universal immune modulator as well, so it can calm down autoimmunity. The medical literature says this: Ganoderma can be used to treat and prevent autoimmune disease. So back to this. So I did a follow-up with this woman after her detox. She did a 10-day detox, and I looked at her. I said, well, how you doing? She said, I feel awful, 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 awful. Well, you don't ever want to hear that from a patient. So I broke the ice a little bit. I said, wait a minute, was that 4 awfuls or 5 awfuls? And she kind of looked at me. I said, listen, sometimes awful's not bad. She said, how could that be? And I explained that could be a detox sign, and you've got a lot to detox. Well, I didn't film her that day. I filmed patients, and I put them on YouTube and stuff like that. That wouldn't be a good day to film her. But 30 days later, she said, I can't believe how good I feel. She said, I can use my fingers. I can get my rings on. I can pick up my kids. I can do the dishes, and that is what's possible. Some of these things that we're maybe led to believe you have to live with and manage with medicine, believe it or not, your body can take care of them in many cases. So now the detox can happen, but I have a video on my YouTube channel, Dr._BOB_Rakowski. You can see it on the flyer again, but this woman was told that she needed a total hysterectomy because her HPV had progressed to severe cervical dysplasia right on the cutting edge of cancer. And they said, sorry, we can't let this go anymore. Total hysterectomy. So she was desperate. You know, she still wanted to have children. She said, "Can I do anything?" I said, "Well, let's see." So we put her on the protocol, and at 30 days, everything, and I do mean everything, completely resolved. Now, bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli. So when people want fast results, I have them take these things every waking hour. So Alana, I probably did that with you. I know I did it with Camila. I've done it with Diane. I've done it with myself. I've done it with my family. I've done it with thousands of patients. And I've taught tens of thousands of doctors all over the world to do it. The crazy thing is, in countries like Sweden, these doctors are very afraid to give people too much nutrition. No, we can't do that, right? Well, then your patients are going to take a lot longer to get better, you know, because they've got stuff they need to, you know, revitalize in their body and other stuff they need to get rid of. And nutrition helps with that. And by the way, it's not dangerous. So I don't think we have anybody else on from Sweden besides Camila here. But people are always worried, is this stuff safe? Yeah, no known toxic dose, no known drug interaction. And if you go to poison control database, we can all name every single person that died from vitamin poisoning in the last 2 decades. And in fact, we can count them all on no fingers because it's been nobody. So what's all this scuttle about? Well, some people are waking up to realize maybe there actually is a war on health. So maybe, right? So Camila asked the question, please tell us about mycelium and the benefits of those. All right, so there's 3 different parts of the mushroom. When we start talking about reishi mushroom, also known as Ganoderma lucidum, the Ganoderma lucidum is the flowering body. It's this big, beautiful red mushroom. The spores is how it replicates, and we have a patented process to get the most nutrients out of the spores. Some are 95 times more concentrated than the Ganoderma lucidum. But then we have the mycelium, which is the root system, which literally is the internet of the earth. And you'll have to dive deep into the mushroom science, but literally all of our earth is covered underneath the surface with mushroom mycelia. And when someone steps into a forest, the plants know 2 miles in with a matter of seconds because those messages are sent. And it's not only that type of information, but it actually allows different plants to share nutrients. So you might wonder how these plants, sometimes in these tropical rainforests, can be so plush and amazing when they don't see any sunlight because the coverage is so strong, the rays don't get through. It's through the mycelium that they're sharing the roots. So for people with brain issues, the mycelium is a great starting point. And for some, it's so magic that they say, I found what I need now. I was listening to a brain audio today, and there was something like 30% of women that were prescribed Valium in the 1970s. They were talking about them as happy pills. Well, we find out that reishi, this is right out of PubMed, has a calming dose equivalent to Valium without the negative side effects. So very powerful. So instead of, you know, drugging our population, maybe we ought to nourish and detoxify them. And this does both.
Does anyone else have any stories they would want to share? I know there's some people on here who have had some reishi experience. You can type in chat if you are unable to speak, but if you want to share, it's a great time to do so. Chris, I see you there.
There he is.
Are you okay to share a little bit?
Sure. Hi
With
from
your
Mexico.
pan and everything.
Well, I tried, was it Royal and King for the first time in September, and that was such an amazing experience. And after that, I was hooked. So I did the protocol that Dr. Bob and Camilla has created, and I've been living with a lot of anxiety, stress, my PTSD and stuff for many, many, many years. And I can tell you, I just realized today that I've never felt this good inside of myself as I do right now. And that's thanks to all these products. So I'm just so thankful and grateful that I met Dr. Bob in Stockholm in September, that Camille introduced me to all these products. It's doing wonders. So I can really, really, really recommend this.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's so
Chris.
amazing. Thanks for sharing, Chris. And that's the thing too, right? Like everyone has a story, and I think it's just worth trying it because there's so many people who've had so much success with it, and that's why I said at the beginning of this call, think about people around you in your world, think about yourself, how something like this can positively impact, yourself or your loved ones. Like we all have health things in our lives, or we will, or did at some point. So this is just such a simple thing to share with them. And it's just a healthier choice. And even for someone like myself, like Chris, Camilla, because you guys are traveling too, like I like it because I can just add hot water. It's a fraction of the cost of what I would pay at Tim Hortons, a Starbucks, and I actually feel good when I drink my coffee. Like I think I'm on my fourth coffee today. Like I'm just finishing my last cup today, and I can actually go to sleep tonight, which is really exciting. So a lot of people can't drink coffee because it gives them gut rot or they get the jitters and all the things. But, no one wants to give up their routine of drinking coffee every day or before bed if that's what they want. So it's just such a simple switch. And I just think it's worth trying and exploring it for at least a month just to get the full effect.
Elena, I just want to add one thing, and that is that you can also use the organic coffee in cold water. I do it all the time
Iced coffee, yeah.
for iced coffee, and it's absolutely amazing. So it doesn't matter hot or cold. It's a cold brew as well. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
coffee in Mexico right now.
Yeah, I bet. And it's so good. I actually make protein shakes with my coffee, and that's good too. So yeah, iced coffee. Oh, I wish I was in Mexico with you guys.
Well, the
Next
world
time.
is yours. That's the beautiful thing about it. Um, so, Alana, we probably want a call for action or maybe a little drawing, see of the names that are there. If we're going to maybe gift some products for people to start.
Yeah, we definitely want to honor those that have participated in the chat. So if you haven't participated yet, it's not too late. We're definitely going to do a draw and get some people some complimentary product, which will be so exciting. And Camilla says, skip us. Very sweet of you, Camilla.
Yep.
So that means that the prize pool got
Yep.
smaller.
You got a greater probability of winning. Yep.
Right, absolutely. And I love what Lindsay just said here. And I think I met Lindsay not too long ago on another conversation that we did, that she's just started her reishi journey and she's already noticed a difference in her gut and focus. And that's what I love. Bodies don't lie, they're really honest. You'll know if it works for you. But here's what I loved. For $1 a cup, $2 a cup, depending on what you drink, every sip you have more energy. Every sip you increase your immunity. Every sip you balance your hormones. Every sip you detoxify your body. There is nothing else out there that will do that for you. And if you are a travel buff, even better. You want to go on a plane, you crack up one of these and it's delicious. You don't have to submit yourself to whatever it is you're being offered. If you're in the middle of the woods, the same thing. It comes individually packaged. It's easy to make. All you need is hot water and you are done. And there's something for everyone. If you love the black, go for it. If you love the mochas, go for it. There's something for everyone. So you definitely want to circle back to Alana or anyone else that invited you to this call. Alana, where could people find product? Where could they try it? You've got nothing to lose, so much to gain. And I always tell my customers, worst case scenario, you got healthier, you save money, and you save time. That's your version of Skid Row. If it's not for you, no big deal. You have so much to gain out of it.
Yeah, perfect. So a lot of you guys, I'll email you this recording. And for those of you who are distributors, because some of you are on this call, if you guys want the recording to share it to your people, absolutely go for it and do that. And for those of you who are watching this, you can circle back to me via email, go on my Instagram. I got all my links there, and I'm happy to help you with whatever you need. And so let's see here. Should we draw a number again, Diane? I'm just looking here.
Yeah, let's do that. Tessa said she won last time. Tessa, I'm so glad you jumped on the call again. And by the way, if you've started some of those
She's awesome.
samples, yeah, let us know what you love best.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, she had her first one today. Oh God, Tessa, okay, so here's what I recommend. If you're starting like Tessa, drink it exclusively. She went for the latte. I knew it. Listen, you know, we love to be as clean as possible, but if you're not going to do it, this is the way to go because it's half the calories, half the insulin spike. It is an option. It helped me with my 2-hour drive to Victoria. I love it, Tessa. That's what I mean. Bodies don't lie, guy. You're hearing the testimonials tonight is absolutely worth it. Yeah, so let's draw a number if you want.
Yeah, I think let's just do 1 to 10. So I think that's good. And then whoever's listening and who's being skipped can do 1 to 10. I will write the number down. But I feel like a lot of people are skipped here.
Well, then that just means it's a smaller pool. And then maybe we'll ask Dr. Bob to give us a number or someone to give us a number.
Oops, I should shut off the chat then because I just.
Oh, is that what you did?
I'm seeing numbers, so I won't. I already saw some of the numbers, so I really shouldn't say.
Okay, Dr. Bob, you're doing the number?
Well, some people know my favorite number. I'd call my favorite number, right? Magnificent 7 is what I'm going to call out.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have, so Angela, you said 6. So that's closest?
All right.
Angela, congratulations. We got some wonderful
congratulations.
complimentary
Yes.
products
So
for
exciting.
you.
So
So
fun.
Angela, I don't know who invited you, but whoever did, please get them to connect with me directly. I'll need your first name, last name, shipping address, phone number, email, and just like Tessa, who won last time, we'll get you some goodies.
Or is it possible that she's in the US? So I
Same
have
thing.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, wherever you are, yeah, we'll have the person who has the easiest thing. I think it's easier to ship from US to US than vice versa than Canada, right? So wherever you are.
Okay, perfect.
That's
so Emma invited
Ontario.
her. Great. So Emma, you and I will connect. We'll get her that information. I love it. Thank you, Emma.
Well, that worked out. Thanks, Emma. Perfect. So before we just close out for today, just so you guys know, Diane and Dr. Bob are on social media, Facebook, Instagram. So give them a follow. Diane, what's your the Diane Solano?
Actually, I got hacked.
Oh no.
It's Diane Solano now.
Okay.
That was my old one. So it's ITS. Diane with 2 N's.
Okay. And then Dr. Bob, your underscore, Dr. Bob.
dr_bob_Rakowski. Yeah.
Okay. So I just typed it in chat. So guys, go give them a follow. They have really good stuff on there and you can continue connecting. And I have a feeling we'll be doing more of these in the future. So stay tuned to that. I'll email you guys so you have an update. And any other questions in the interim, feel free to reach out at any point in time. And I really appreciate you guys joining tonight. And Dr. Bob, Diane, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Dr. Bob. Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the winners. Have an amazing night.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.